So this half of the kings, you already know basically that the genealogy of Jesus Christ is a little bit of a surprising one. Because we would think that the king of all kings, right, our Messiah, Jesus Christ, would come from a genealogy that is really not perfect. In fact, there were so many people in there who were so wicked. How could they possibly have their name written in this supposed to be an illustrious genealogy? So this is what we want to explore, because nothing in the Bible is by mistake. We know that the Word of God is true, is accurate, and is inerrant. So everything that He says in the Bible has to have some kind of meaning, and the meaning always translates into the salvation of mankind, which is us. Okay, so we'll go through. So what we're going to do is, right now, the title that we're going to cover is an assessment of the 14 kings. So you already saw basically these 14 kings. It's a whole bunch of names to remember, right? So we want to understand, first of all, why we study all these names. Okay, first of all, we study these names is because within these names, these people, every single one of them that we don't really know, we've never seen them, we only hear them. Okay? In their lives, in these lives, God has put in them, we can see from their lives that God's history of redemption, okay, can be seen in these lives. Okay? His salvation work is being passed on. And these are the people, the successors of the covenant. Because the covenant started very early, called the seed of the woman. And that was promised at the very, very beginning. And it's through these people, these are the successors of the covenant. Just as you and me, we are now successors of these covenants. And these are the people who are holding on this covenant till the time of Jesus coming. And likewise, we are holding it to the second coming. Alright, that's why it's so important to know about these genealogies. And also, it's a line of a lineage. It's these faithful people who have become part of this illustrious line, okay? And we too want to be in this line. And this line, importantly, started and can only continue because of the fact that God gave His loving mercy to us through the covenant of the seed of the woman. And from there, we have eventually Jesus who came to save us. Right? And thirdly, the reason why we study the genealogy is because through these people, whether they were good or they're bad, they teach us about ourselves. It's like a mirror. You look at them and you go like, oh my goodness, is that me? You know, this is scary. How do I change what I'm going through? Or how do I become what God wants me to be? So this is why we study the genealogy, because it's so vitally important to us to not make the mistakes they do, or to correct ourselves when we see the same mistakes. Right? So that's why we study it first of all. Then secondly, we have to ask ourselves, okay, I want to take you back to a little bit about the background of this genealogy. So we know that in Matthew 1, okay, Matthew 1 to actually 11 tells you about this genealogy. And we know that Jesus' genealogy is divided into 3 sections, which we've already covered, okay, previously. So if we look at the 3 sections, we know that the very first section, which we covered last year, was in book 3, okay? And it starts from Abraham. Okay, I'm just going to short form Abraham to David, right? And this is from 2166 BC to 1003 BC. And then the period we're actually going to be studying is starting from here to here, okay? So from David to the deportation to Babylon. Short form again, sorry, and then from Jesus coming. You and I know that Jesus is the very core of God's plan of salvation. In other words, because of this plan that God has for us, we actually have some kind of hope and some kind of future. Before that, we didn't have anything. So this is called the core of Jesus Christ. Now, everything that God has allowed, like this, the title of the book says, the profound and mysterious providence. Everything that has happened from the very beginning of time from Adam unto Jesus and unto us is God's providence. And why is it so profound and why is it mysterious? Because as we study this, we will realize how amazing it is. Okay, so we know that Abraham was just one of the forefathers. But by the time David came, this became a huge nation, right? So what you see here was that it was a very small nation, I guess Moon is like, okay, but it really grew to its epitome, right? Its peak during the time of David. All right. And how did this happen? Happened because before that we had a seed, right? The promise of that one seed that allowed the genealogy to continue. Then, during Abraham's time, he was given 7 Abrahamic covenants. And he said that, I'm going to give you people, your nation, right? And the nation is going to inherit the land. Remember Pastor earlier said that we've lost 3 things? We lost the people, the land, and sovereignty, right? So can you see where God is already coming back to recover his people? He's setting his people up. They're not recovered yet, okay, but he's setting his people up. And he's also setting the land up, right? And what did he do? He said, when he gave the covenant to Abraham, he said, look, I will promise you descendants like the stars. Okay? And these people will be in Egypt, in slavery. But what's going to happen after that? They are all going to go to the promised land. Amen, right? That's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do, the promised land. So, because of that covenant, okay, and the people cried in Egypt, and they cried out because they were in such suffering. God remembered. God said, hey, remember my covenant with with Abraham. I'm going to bring my people up. So you can see that the covenant is a very, very important thing. Without the very first covenant, we won't have the second one. Because the second is just a follow-through of the first one. And same thing when it comes to David. So what happened was that God, through his covenant, okay, because of his promise to himself, he allowed the people to come out to the land. One more thing that we're missing. We're missing now, we need the sovereignty, right? That's where this line now. This line in particular, all 14 of them happen to be kings. So this is the lineage of the Davidic dynasty. So this line itself, they're all kings. And you would think that, kings, they should be pretty okay people. They should be the all-stars of the lineage, right? But they really aren't. In fact, the contrary is true. They are so much worse in many, many ways. But what happened here was that David was given this covenant, this wonderful covenant of the Davidic covenant. Okay? And so we're going to go through what the Davidic covenant is. The Davidic covenant can be seen in 2 Samuel, okay, 7, 12 to 16. All right. So in this Davidic covenant, what does it say? It says, okay, I'm just going to write here, all right, that he promises an offspring. Of course, the immediate offspring is going to be Solomon, right? This offspring to build him a house. But of course, we all know now that Jesus Christ is the ultimate offspring. So it was just a foreshadowing. So Solomon was going to come, there was going to offspring, that was going to build a house for God. And in turn, what is God going to do? God was going to establish this house, his throne, and his kingdom. See, that word comes back again. Forever. Forever. However, there's some conditions to it, Okay? First, God is going to be like a father. So I will be a father to him, right? And he be my son. Just like you and me, or those people who are married and have children, you don't leave your children to do whatever they please. Right? You discipline them. So if they sin, that means your children sin, God promises that they will be afflicted and they will suffer blows by men. In other words, God will allow events in their lives to bring them back, to discipline them so that they can bring them back and get them to walk the right way. And of course, the last thing is that God says, my love, okay, my love will never be taken away. So this is the Davidic covenant that you will see is getting clearer and clearer to you, right? In other words, these kings, the successors of the covenant, are the successors who these people are what? The descendants of the seed that was promised, descendants of the father of faith, and now of the line of kings. So they come from this ancestry, right? So it says that I'm going to give him offspring, I'm going to establish his kingdom forever. I'm going to be like a father to him, but if he sins, I'm going to do something about it. And my love, however, my love will never be taken away. And that's because God's love is eternal, and God's love is what propelled him to give us a covenant. If he didn't love us, it's like, okay, that's it. You guys all, you've sinned, I'm done with you. No, it's his love. His love that he couldn't bear to lose us. And that's why he gave us a covenant. And because he gave us a covenant is for sure. Because he swore on himself. He said, I swear on myself, this is my oath, right? I will remember my oath and I will fulfill it, and nothing can sever this covenant. And this, we must now know, this is how the genealogy starts. Basically, God gave a foolproof promise, okay, already to David. But let's see what happens to David, this dynasty. So that is the Davidic covenant. We already know that God assesses these people in different ways. Okay. Basically, he assesses them either they are good or they're not, right? So we're going to go through the assessment, God's assessment of them. So the way, the assessment. So we're going to do the assessment criteria here. We're just going to generally do this. I hope I got enough space, maybe probably not. Do this, okay. So for the assessment of the kings, this is what God usually says, okay? They are either the category of the good kings, you've seen, right? The good kings, or he says they are actually evil kings. Evil kings, and the evil is divided into two. So if you go and look at the book 4, you realize that Reverend Abraham Park has really helped us already, because he's done it in the nice charts and diagrams so that you can actually see it very clearly. Okay, who are wicked kings and who are not wicked kings. So there's two categories. You have the evil kings, and the evil kings are divided into two again. Okay, so you have the wicked, and then I'm going to short form it, okay? Extremely wicked ones. And the same thing with the good ones. We have two categories for the good ones. We have as good as David, okay, and as good as the father, right? And then we have wicked like the father, and then we have extremely wicked like the kings of Israel and the nations. Okay, I'm going to explain that a little bit more. But you know that, remember, the nation got divided, the United Monarchy got divided into two kingdoms, okay? So, the northern kingdom of Israel is actually what we're describing here, the kings of Israel, all of them were wicked. So basically, they were kind of in the extremely wicked category. So this is how the Bible talks about it in terms of good and wicked. And if you look at good, they always say, he did right in the sight of God. He did good in the sight of God. And he walked right like his father. Okay? So it was always something like that. he was good, and he walked good in the sight of God, like his father did. Or he walked right right in the sight of God, like his father did. Okay? So all these are the ways they categorize. So if you go and look at the references for kings, it's basically 2 Samuel 2 onwards. Okay, so you have 1 Kings, 2 Kings. It's a lot to read actually. 2 Chronicles, okay. First and 2 Chronicles, right? So there's a lot to read, but then you will just generally see this happening. Okay? Now, so we have David. So let's talk about good itself. Okay, what is good define? What does generally God define as good? Okay. So we think about good, right? Good. What did these kings do that allowed God to say, oh, these kings are good, as opposed to wicked? So one thing we realize is, is that first of all, as Pastor Sam said, worship. Okay? They established godly worship. They all obeyed the word of God. They all established God's word. The Sabbath, they got people to go to the temple to pray, to give offerings, and Passover, observe Passover. So that's godly worship. Everything that they did that God wanted, okay, that's how they became good kings. And they depended on the word of God. They depended on the word of God. And they listened to the prophets. So our prophets today is like our pastors, right? Our teachers of the word. These are the people that we talk to, and we also learn from them. And not only that, they fortified the nation. Right? So if you think about it, right, if we love somebody very much, we want to spend a lot of time with them. And isn't it true, if we love God, we want to spend a lot of time in His temple. We want to be reading His word. We want to be with Him. Correct? And we want to obey Him. Right? If you love somebody, that's your whole desire. And the same thing with the fortified nation, right? If let's say your family is what you love, don't you want to build your family up? Don't you want to make sure that there's no external forces that will come and distract them or to take them away from you, right? And the other thing that they did was they were all humble. Humble. The reverse is true now, right? So the wicked people, what did they do? They had ungodly worship. So they brought in a lot of the idols and Baal worship, Asherah. Okay. Then they didn't depend on God. What did they depend on? They depended on themselves, or they depended on their doctors, or they depended on the nations. So if somebody attacked them, they go, oh, I'm going to Assyria, I'm going to Aram for support. Okay. So they didn't depend on God. So they were dependent on the world. And then what did they do? Did they fortify the nation? No. A lot of them were complacent. They started to enjoy their own lives. They hedonistic. Or they started building their own family. Okay? And finally, so they were complacent. And a lot of them were arrogant. Okay? Like God blessed them in the beginning, they followed God, and after they God blessed them, and what was the result? They became arrogant and they said, oh, I did it myself. Right? Instead of giving the glory to God. But what happens when they did all these things? Like you saw, they were protected, they prospered. And the reverse is true here. God, remember I said that if you sin, God was going to discipline them. How did God discipline them? Invading nations. Okay? And then disease. And finally destruction. Okay? They were destroyed. And we see that in so this is the way that God defined, if you look at the Bible, in the Bible. Okay? So I'm going to erase this, if you don't mind. Okay, so this is the way that God has kind of assessed them. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to write down the names and let's have a look on a chart how the assessment of these kings were. So I'm going to do a timeline, basically on all the 14 kings. And then we're going to chart out how they did in terms of the assessment. My lines are not very straight, okay, but that's fine. And it's quite a long board. And these are the names of the people, right? So basically we have David. These are the names that are listed in Matthew 1, 6 to 11. They are not the 20 kings of the southern Judah dynasty, okay? It is basically, the names are only on Matthew 1 because there are 7 names that have been omitted from this genealogy. So David, Solomon, his son, okay, then we have Rehoboam. I'm just going to, Abijah, Asa, Jehoshaphat, okay, Jehoram, and then we have the 4 missing kings here. Uzziah, okay, Jotham, Ahaz, okay, Hezekiah, Manasseh, Amon, and finally Josiah. Alright. So these are the 14 kings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 kings. We already know that David and Solomon didn't come from during David and Solomon's time, they were the united monarchy. Okay? However, something happened during this time, which was Solomon's time. Solomon's time, like remember I told you at the peak, right? During this time, the very, very peak time, is actually during Solomon's time. And during Solomon's time, the nation was the greatest because they had territorially the most dominant, and also they were the most prosperous, and also it was the most peaceful time. So in other words, of all the times, this was probably the most, the peak or the climax of the dynasty. However, we would think that somebody like David and Solomon, right? We know them so well. David is like the exemplary king. What happened along the way? Wouldn't you think that David would have passed on his fame in such a way that all these kings would be somebody, special? However, the reverse is true. Because during this time, actually something else happened. They actually declined. Physically, as a nation, as well as spiritually. So much so that sometime in 586 BC, they were all, the temple of God, the kingdom was destroyed, and they were all brought to captivity in Babylon. How could something like that happen? Right? From a person like David, go all the way to destruction. Okay? And the reason why is because something happened here. Solomon, remember God said, when you go into the nations, kill them all, don't intermarry into them. Solomon had, like he was, I think Lord said earlier, right, 1,000 wives, right? And 300 concubines. He married a Gentile woman who didn't know God. And so what happened? It's like this, right? You and your wife, okay, you have a wife or a spouse. Right? You have a household. And then one day your spouse says, your picture, your beloved picture, they bring in a mistress or a second guy or something and replace the picture and put something else there. How would you feel? Right? I don't know, but I would be devastated if my husband put somebody else's picture and brought the person into the house. That would be a no. It doesn't happen. Sorry, okay? But God was really, really upset. Okay? God was upset that he remembered what he said to David. And he said, okay, Solomon, for the sake of my son David, I am going to give you one tribe. I'm not going to take off everything, I'm not going to destroy you. I'm going to give you one tribe, and the rest will be separated. So that's what happened during Solomon's time. Okay? So during Solomon's time, after Solomon's time, in fact, because God was so gracious that it wouldn't happen during his time. It was only his son's time. Okay, so that nation was broken. So this is now becomes two nations. So I'm going to just, for the sake of retaining this chart, from now on, this top section is going to be the southern kingdom. Southern kingdom of Judah. Okay? In short, SJ. From now on, I'll just say SJ. And here is the northern kingdom of Israel. And from now on, I'll just say NI. Okay? So we have it divided now. This itself, from the very, very peak, has now become a divided nation. This is a sad thing to happen, but it gets worse. That's the problem. It doesn't just stop there, it gets even worse than that. So we're going to have a look at how it got worse. And before I do that, I'm just going to put little dots and pictures to tell you how God rated that thing. So we're going to see that, of course, David was rated by himself. He's got to be as good as himself, right? So David, Solomon was also considered as good as David because, come on, you think about it, but Solomon, the son of David, he built the house of temple. At his time, the nation was the greatest. Okay? So he was pretty good until he got married. Then he married the wrong people. That's when he fell. He actually started doing evil. Then we have Rehoboam, and Rehoboam was wicked. Okay. Abijah was also wicked. And then we have Asa. Asa was just as good because it was he did right, like his father David. Okay. Then we have Jehoshaphat, who was also good. In fact, he was really good, except he did something wrong. And then we have Jehoram. Okay. Jehoram was wicked. And then something happened. Okay. Then you have Uzzah, who was good, but not so good anymore, just like his father. Okay. Jotham is good. Then we have Ahaz. Ahaz was extremely wicked. Okay. So I think I have to put the dots bigger so that you'll never be one of these. Okay. And then of course we have Hezekiah. Hezekiah is a good guy. Oh, we have Manasseh. Manasseh was extremely wicked. Okay. And then we have Amon. And then we have Josiah. And Josiah was a very, very good king too. So if we look at this chart, right, and I'm going to just like connect it for you. Actually, he was good, but then he became wicked. Okay, and after Josiah, actually, what happened was that all the kings after that were wicked. Right? So if we look at this, right, what do you think of this? Any thoughts, it's supposed to be the genealogy of Jesus Christ, you know? This is supposed to be the genealogy of Jesus Christ. Okay, does it make any sense to you? Like, okay, Hezekiah was a really good king, and Manasseh all of a sudden dropped off the face of the earth. And then, it's like, Jehoshaphat was a pretty good king, and then his son is like, what happened to him? Right? So, David was a pretty good king. In fact, he was the best king, right? And then Solomon, what happened to Solomon? Alright, so first of all, there's many, many things to be seen here. Because like I said already, there's nothing inerrant about the Bible. The Bible didn't write strongly. Okay, the Bible wrote it rightly because there's many things that the Bible wanted to teach us. And we also know that somebody else who's not a Jew was introduced here, and that was Uriah. So if you look at Matthew 1:6, it says that Solomon is the son of David, whose wife is the wife of Uriah. Okay. So one thing we will notice is that this genealogy is a line of faith. Okay. Although all of these kings came from one dynasty, and they all came from the blood of David. However, Uriah was associated with the exemplary king. Right? Why is that? Uriah, remember that the line of faith is about faith. In other words, if you have faith in a covenant, which is what these people did, they believed in the covenant and they held on to this covenant, and that's why they became the covenanted sons. Right? So the same thing with Uriah. Uriah was a Gentile, not a Jew by bloodline, but he believed in the covenant and he believed in God. And that's why his name is associated. And because of that, you and I are included in this genealogy, isn't it? Because we're not Jews by bloodline, we're all Gentiles. But God is not a God of the Jews, He's also a God of the Gentiles. Right? So that's why we're included. So one of the things that we see in the genealogy is that special name that's included. Just like you saw the 3 shameful women that was included before. That's the same thing, right? And then now we have a look at this, right? So how do we explain? Before this, the kings and the tribes were kind of like still a bit moderate. But after that, the kings and the tribes became extremely wicked. Okay, so you have really good ones and you shifted to extremely wicked ones. So how did that happen? It happened because, remember I told you about these people, Northern Israel. Northern Israel was kings that God would have blessed had they walked in the way of God. Because God said, I'll make you just as great as the Davidic kingdom. However, they didn't. They were very wicked people. They actually worshipped Baal and the Asherah, and then they worshipped the golden calf, and they followed the ways of the nations. Right? At this time, there was a bad king, Ahab. Okay? Ahab was the most wicked king of northern Israel. And he, or Jehoshaphat, as Pastor Sam earlier told you, made alliance with Jehoshaphat. Okay? He made an alliance with Jehoshaphat to have peace between the two kingdoms because they were warring each other. So what's the best way, right? Is to give your son and your daughter to each other. And that's what happened. However, Jehoshaphat's name says about judges, he should have been wise to judge, but he didn't. He didn't realize that marrying into the northern Israel kingdom would just bring the idols into his nation. And that's exactly what happened. Baal worship came in. Okay? So you have Baal worship coming in, and because the Baal worship came in, it influenced the line, the genealogy, it became worse. Right? So this is what happened, and by the time Jehoram married the evil daughter, Athaliah, and she was the cause of all these missing generations, omitted generations. Okay, so this is reason. So if you look at our lives, like I was saying, we need to instill transmission of faith, right? Transmission of faith is very important here. Why do you think God made such a big deal and say, oh, he walked like my father, or he walked like Father David? Why? Why did he do that? Because he's trying to give credit where credit's due. David walked well, and David influenced a lot of people, just as David influences us now. And his faith was recognized, right? Just like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob's faith is recognized now because they're living faith. So is David's faith, right? So transmission of faith is so vitally important. That's why repeatedly, every single king, God keeps saying he walked wicked or he walked good. So what is our transmission of faith? Are we transmitting the covenant to our children well? Are we protecting them? Are we making sure that no foreign influences come in to break into our household? Just like we fortify the walls, right? We make sure that these people don't come into our lives, right? So you can see that the influences of transmission of faith, our responsibility is to transmit as best as we can. Okay? And anything else, God will take care of. Right? Because we cannot control the influences. We can, to some extent, control the influences of satanic influences, evil forces, darkness that comes in. However, our responsibility is to transmit as best as we can to our family. Right? Then the other thing that we realize is that during Hezekiah's time and Manasseh's time, right? Okay, why is it that our house was like extremely wicked? Also, Hezekiah was this sharpness, right? Because during this time, it was actually also the same time that God really was so upset with the nations because they were so evil here that God actually sent Assyria, right? No, Assyria. And Syria destroyed the northern Israel in 722. And this is about the same time exactly between Ahaz and Hezekiah. Okay? So it must have shocked Hezekiah in a way because he just realized that, oh my gosh, the other kingdom completely destroyed. Right? It might have, I don't know, I wasn't there at the time. It's very, very possibility that it would have influenced, would it influence you if all of a sudden Malaysia got taken over by somebody that's strange? Right? You would be affected by it because you're just neighbors. So this is exactly the same thing. It would have influenced. So you realize that the north and the south influence each other as well. And there's a lot of Satan's forces that are coming in, right? So, but we have God's forces and we have a transmission to do. So that's what happens. So what are the few other things that we can see that's going on here? Okay? Firstly, we know there is a line of faith here. Alright? And we know that the good guys, okay, we can explain the good guys being in the lineage. But how do we explain these other guys being in the lineage, right? It doesn't seem to make sense. So let's go through then and see how. Okay, Rehoboam, remember God gave this wonderful covenant, right? To David, which is the covenant, the Davidic covenant. Okay. This is the start of everything, just like the seed of the woman, it's the start of everything. Okay, we know that Solomon sinned, and because of him, it started the split of the nation, right? And he actually did evil because he started bringing the idols into the nation of Judah. Okay? And because of that, God was so incensed that he said, I'm going to only give you one. And he was going to give one tribe only because of his son David. No other reason why. Okay? So when Solomon sinned against God and did evil, and he didn't, the Bible is silent about him repenting. But in other words, because God said, I promised David, right, that you will always have a lamb forever, right? He, in turn, gave Solomon a lamb. And that is in 1 Kings 11:36. So, and there was a few lambs, I'm going to go through them. Okay, there's a few lambs that have been given. To Abijah was been given as well. Another lamb, and this is in 1 Kings 15:4. We have one more here. Okay. A third reminder. This one is in 2 Chronicles 21:7. And one final one here, which is Ahaz. In my verse. Which is Isaiah 7:14. So we have Rehoboam. Okay, after Solomon, because of Solomon, Rehoboam was also extremely wicked. Why? Because he was really following Solomon and having worship of the idols in there. Okay. So Rehoboam, the good thing about him is that he repented. God, remember I told you God would send nations, invading nations. Well, the king of Egypt, as Pastor said earlier, Shashak came and attacked him. And the good thing was that the people would humble themselves and repented. And because he repented, God said, I'm not destroying you. Okay? So that is the solution. How about Abijah? Abijah never repented. Okay? So what happened? God gave a sign, which is the lamb. He reminded the lamb. Okay. Then we have somebody like Jehoram. Jehoram is a very strange guy because after their lives with northern Israel, you find that with Jehoram, instead of Jehoram supposed to be walking by his father, right? He started walking by his father-in-law the wrong way, you know? That's the wrong way. So, and not only that, once he started walking like his father, he started participating in the rituals and the idolatry of the kings of Israel, and that's why he was put under. Actually, in the book it says that he was just a wicked king, but he actually indulged and walked like the kings of Israel. Then you have Uzzah. Uzzah was considered a good king, although he tried to be like the priest. Right? Here, okay, for Jehoram, he sinned so badly, okay, where he introduced, and not only that, he killed his 6 brothers, okay, and he led his people to be harlots to Baal, and God was really upset, and he wouldn't repent. So much so that God gave him the bowel disease, and he later died. Okay, so what you see here is God's trend that he said in his covenant, I will punish you with the nations, right? So he sent the nations, okay, he sent his prophets to warn him. He got disease, and he still didn't repent. But you know what? God, once he promises covenant, it doesn't settle. It's an unfailing covenant. Okay? And because it's unfailing covenant, God promised, and he gave the land. He said, I will not destroy Judah, the house of Judah, because I promised for the sake of my son, David. Right? So for the sake of David, he will not destroy, even though he was so upset with them already. It's like, I can't stand it, right? Okay? But he did it, and he said, look, this is my land, my third reminder to you. You know, like, first reminders, you can't remember that you go to jail, right? So, but no, God continued to give a reminder. And he said, because of David, I will not destroy the house of Judah. And then what happens to Ahaz? Ahaz was extremely wicked, okay? Remember the reason why they're as like the kings of Israel and the nations. The nations had something that they did very often, which was they would offer their children to be burned to the gods. Okay? Now think about it, right? We all know the story of Isaac and Abraham. And we know how difficult it was for Abraham to offer Isaac, his only coveted son who was going to form the nations, right? And yet, we have these kings willingly giving their sons. You have to remember, the covenant belongs to us, and the reason why we transfer our faith is because we want to follow what God said, be fruitful, multiply, right? So we're supposed to have a lot of descendants that will inherit the kingdom of God, right? We're not supposed to kill them off. And that's why it's so ironical and even so depraved that they will actually take their children and they will offer it to an idol. Not just kill them, actually let them walk into the fire and just kill them, right? So this is how depraved they were. That's why God says they're extremely wicked, because when you do that, you cut off your lineage. You have no more lineage to talk about, and that's why it's extremely wicked. Because if you look at God's lineage, it's always continue, transmit, not cut it off and offer your son to the idols. Okay? So that's what's extremely. So Ahaz was really wicked because he went around and Israel came to conquer him, and God said, ask me for a sign, and I'm going to protect you. And he threw God's hands off and said, no, I don't. In fact, he said even more, he built an altar and he bowed down to the god of Damascus, okay? But the thing is that he threw God's hands off and he said, no, I don't want a sign, I'm not going to ask you for one. Okay? So much so that God himself said, okay, don't ask me for a sign, I'm going to give you a sign anyway. And this is the sign. The sign is going to be a virgin. And she will conceive a child. And his name will be Emmanuel. Alright, we talk about lamb. And then all of a sudden God goes like, is there going to be a virgin that's going to born a child called Emmanuel? How clear and unambiguous is that? Right? This is basically in your face. Look, you don't want to follow me. I'm going to force it down your throat. Okay? I'm going to save you regardless of yourself. You're so terrible, and yet I have so much love for you. And that is truly our God, isn't it? Amen. So, so Manasseh was the most wicked of them. So I gotta put that back. He's so extremely wicked. But you know what? One thing that he did was he repented because God sent a nation to come get him, right? So Assyria came, dragged him off, hooks in his nose and bronze shackles, and took him over. And he must have suffered that way because he used to be king. He repented and he spoke. And he repented to God sincerely. But God brought him back. And he became king again. What did he do next? He had religious reformation. So if we look at this, we realize that the good kings, a lot of them had religious reformation. In other words, they installed godly worship, which is so important, right? That's where the sovereignty of God is. So all of these had religious reformation. These all are abomination. They worship like the nations. In fact, Manasseh was so bad that God said he was worse than the Amorites. So he was worse than the people, the general people who were observing all these horrible practices. He was worse than them. So he was worse than the people, the Gentile people, and yet when he asked for repentance, God forgave him. So what do we see from here? There are many things to be seen. Okay? First of all, this genealogy is not dependent on us at all. Because if you really look at this is no genealogy that anybody can be proud of. Okay? The genealogy is not dependent on us. The genealogy from the very start when you see the woman is dependent on God. God's fervent love is the one that pushes everything and propels every line. He is the sole person that will assure that even the extremely wicked can remain in this line. Because not everybody remained in the line. Some of them were omitted. Okay? Northern Israel got destroyed. And in fact, it was so bad that God said, there's no more remedy to you guys, you know. And what did happen? Destruction here, and there was destruction here as well. Because by 586, they were all gone to Babylon in captivity. There was 3 deportations, and they ended. But it didn't end there because God's covenant won't allow it to end there. He just brought them out to discipline them. You don't deserve your house, your throne, or your kingdom. So I'm going to take you out for a while, and then so you can learn. You can be trained, you can be humbled, and then when you desire, you can come back to build me my house, my kingdom, and my nation again. And that's what happened 17 years later on after they went to Babylon. Okay, King Cyrus was appointed to build a temple for God, and he sent his people back in 3 returns, right? So we see that transmission, all in all, is a lineage of faith. We see that transmission of faith is very important. Okay, so we try our very best to do what we can to transmit it to our kids. So prayers, influences, God will handle. The ones that we cannot handle, God will handle them and they'll bring him back. And the thing is that with these lands, right, this land, people who we cannot handle, who we don't understand why they're wicked, God will take them. God will promise because of the covenant, he will not allow his covenant to cease. So there's a ceaseless progression of this line. And the other thing is that this is comforting. Because if you look at it, I must tell you, you're looking at what my life is like. In certain portions of my life, it has been a down, some ups. Have I been, probably sometimes I got somebody, somebody affected me, or maybe sometimes I get sick. These things will happen, not because God hates you, but because God loves you so much and he wants you to come back, right? So we cannot, so this is a chart of God's tremendous love for us. It's not a chart that shows just a wicked king. It shows a God that will withstand all our inadequacies, all our imperfections, all our stubbornness, all our wickedness, and he himself will overcome for us. Amen. And this is the type of God that we have. How can we not love this God in return? Right? This is a God that has been from the start. Been there, waiting and waiting, and He just wants us to be included in His genealogy so that we can long to see Him when He returns. Amen. Okay, thank you so much. And glory to God. Let us say a prayer first.